think if I'm Kyle Busch, I would sign a contract with a good base, somewhere close to what Joe is probably offering, and see if Joe would be okay with incentivizing that contract. If I run, if I get this many top fives, if I finish, in the top three, I get a bigger share of the purse. Or if I, make the playoffs, win the championship, I get X amount of dollars as well. And also have a clause in this contract that you would share in a percentage of any of the sponsorship monies that are brought to that car. So as they're searching for this sponsorship, if you're going to sign this contract before that sponsor is signed, you would then be assured some money, more money, as that sponsorship comes through, and agree to a certain percentage with Joe Gibbs. That's not unprecedented. That's been done in the series before. So I think Kyle and Joe both deserve that. I think they both have earned that from each other to have a bit of an agreement. Look, Kyle, I'll sign this contract now. I'll incentivize it. So if we get to where I want to go with sponsorship and so forth, you're going to get what you want. But if we fail to do that, you're going to drive for this amount of money while I'm basically losing money. And I think that Joe can do that for only 1 year. So he can probably only sign a 1-year deal with Kyle, knowing he's going to lose money without a sponsorship. We also need to consider Kurt Busch. So Kurt Busch has been hinting at retirement for years. He has this. He's had a rough season, a lot of hard hits. He had some concussion-like symptoms in Pocono. All this may alter his timeline to retirement. All right, and so that's one to be considered as well. I could see a scenario where Ty Gibbs is driving a 2311 car next year. I could see a scenario where Tyler Reddick comes early to 2311. I could even see a scenario where Kyle Busch is driving a 2311 car. Also, we got to think about where's Kyle going to go, Kyle Busch. If he doesn't sign with Joe, where is he going? Who is going to sign him?
Now, I think that the people that ask that question are looking at the available options, but they're not thinking about like the creative options.
Right. So the creative options are this: who is going to sign him? Who is going to sign him is the person that's going to be willing to pay his asking price. Who are those people? All right. It's not Richard Childress Racing.
No, they wouldn't pay that.
No, it may be Gene Haas.
It may be Gene Haas.
It may be.
You're asking who can pay that.
Yeah, you could argue that Rick Hendrick.
Rick Hendrick can pay that.
Can pay that and would pay that.
Yeah.
Would he bring Kyle back? A lot of people would say absolutely not. He brought Kyle Larson in.
When people thought nobody wanted him.
Nobody was sure about what to do with Kyle Larson, and
That's
he
right.
brought him in there and spun it and made it work. He could absolutely spin this as bringing Kyle home. He's matured. He's ready. We're going to win some races. We got unfinished business. All those things.
And not only that, but Rick Hendrick has a past of it. He's okay with the pariahs of the sport being on his team.
My point. Yeah.
Yeah. He's had them.
Yep. The other guy that I think is a possible landing spot, and this would be something to consider, is Colleague. I know that Kyle might not want to go there because of the lack of performance, much like Haas. I don't know if Kyle's going to want to need to drive that car, right? Now, he could go to Haas and they could win races. Kyle's that good. Even with their performance this year, I think they could go there and he'll run as good as Harvick, if not a little bit better, depending on the scenario, the crew chief and all that. Could he go to Colleague and do that? I'm not so sure, but he'd run that car in the top 10, top 5. But for Colleague, if you're like Colleague has poured a ton of money into the sport on the Xfinity level to get to a winning team. In the Cup level, he is spending money. He has the money. He has the ability. If he is serious about being a legit star team in the Cup level, you go get your star driver. You go get that veteran with championships, with wins. You can groom the young guys, absolutely. But if you see a guy, what does Rick Hendrick do? He goes and gets the stars. He grooms the young guys as well, but he's known to be able to go out there and say, that's the best guy on the market, and I'm getting him. He's mine. That's exactly the mentality of Denny going to get Reddick. Doesn't have all the answers, doesn't have the charter, doesn't know how he's going to make this work, but he knows he's got the driver that he wants. So if you're Colleague, you've got to be looking at Kyle Busch and calling him up or answering the phone and getting a conversation saying, what would it take? I know what I need to pay you. Okay. What else is missing here for you to want to come here? Because that is exactly the driver that would put colleague on the front street.
Yes, it would.
And if they're serious about being in the sport a long time and being, I know they are. They're serious about winning. They're serious about wanting to be a championship team. They need to be in the middle of the conversation. They should be if they're not already.
So to sum that up then, just so I'm clear on where you're at, you're thinking that Ty Gibbs proved that he's ready for Cup this past weekend, and I agree with that. God, never been in this race car. These cars are so hard to drive, when you do have experience and tests and all that other stuff. Well, he didn't, and yet he went in there and he finished the race. I mean, look, impressive. You think he's ready for Cup. He's also a very affordable option for Joe Gibbs. Joe Gibbs, if he didn't have an option on the Kyle Busch situation, he's got one now.
So that's a great point, Mike. If you're Joe Gibbs and you're struggling to get the sponsorship, you could probably bite the bullet for 1 year, all right, and say, all right, Kyle, I'm going to give you – I can't get all the way there where you want me to, but I can get this close, and Kyle would probably agree to it. But if you're going to knowingly go into a situation where you're going to lose money potentially, why not hire Ty Gibbs?
Invest in your own grandson.
Have your own Joe Gibbs is nearly 80 years old, and he's built this program to what it is today. Why not get Ty in there now? Enjoy watching your grandson drive for that business that you created and start that process now, right? Why? I just don't think, yes, another year of Xfinity will not hurt Ty Gibbs. He will gain more knowledge, more experience, but it is creating a little bit of distance between him and his fellow competitors once he does go to Cup because they're getting another year in the next-gen car, which is a very new car for everybody. And I just feel like I think there's no wrong answers here. I just think that there's a lot of variables to play, and this is so compelling to watch and see how this plays out. I felt like going into Pocono and standing in the booth on Sunday, there was no question that Kyle Busch and Joe Gibbs will absolutely get this deal done. No question. Kyle Busch will drive for the 18 team. He's not going anywhere. But I can absolutely also see some of these other scenarios playing out. Yeah. And if the right person calls Kyle Busch, if a colleague or Haas, and they put the right number in front of him and talk about resources and convince him that the program's going to be going in the right direction, giving him a lot of creative control over who he has for crew chief and all the other things, this could be exactly what, kind of sends Kyle in that direction. It opens up a lot of doors for Joe as far as Ty Gibbs. So let's talk about Kyle Busch. All right. When I was getting ready to retire, I felt like, man, I was kind of retiring early, so I started looking at some of the numbers age-wise for some drivers, right? I went, back 20, 30 years and looked at all the drivers who retired, when they retired, and their performance. And I roughly, and this is not a scientific process, but I roughly gathered that around the age of 43, 95% of the drivers peak and nose over. So there is a absolute massive peak in performance around 35 to 43. Mm-hmm. All right? That age is really where most drivers are as good as they're ever going to be.
Yep.
And right around 43, for whatever reason, there's a lot. Age, injury, race car, program falls apart, whatever it is. Around 43 is when things sort of go sideways and nose over quite drastically. And there is that 5%, that win beyond 40, even into their 50s, can still be good. And we've got some of those guys, and I think Kyle could possibly absolutely be one of those guys. But at the least, Kyle has 5 to 6 peak top championship caliber driving years left.
Because he's 37, 38. Yeah, just turned 37, I think.
At the least, he's got 5 damn good years.
Sure. That's definitely
And so whoever signs him that's 5 more years or 5 years of awesome talent. If you're an owner, that's something that's pretty awesome, pretty excited about. Hey guys, I'm here to tell you 3 reasons why I love our sponsor, Tire Pros. Number 1, Tire Pros loves cars as much as I do. Number 2, they have great service. Number 3, they're committed to getting you back out on the road. Plus, they've got this really cool logo.
Dale, that's 4 reasons.
And they have over 600 locations, 24/7 roadside assistance, a great selection, and a best-in-class tire warranty. Tire Pros, love the drive.